All right, this is Ubaid on behalf of Electronics, and in this video, we'll be looking at money supply and the velocity when it comes to the pace at which the money circulates within an economy. All right, now, when it comes to money supply, we're looking at the supply of loanable funds. Okay, and this has to do with your central bank or Federal Reserve Bank. Okay, when the Federal Reserve Bank goes ahead and makes a purchase, buys bonds or treasury bills from the commercial banks within a nation, okay, they are basically pumping money within the economy. Okay, they're pumping money in the reserves of the banks. Okay, so money supply, this has to do with loanable funds. All right, and we've talked about how the increase or reduction of loanable funds within an economy impacts the interest rates, okay, or the federal funds rate. All right, now, when it comes to your money supply, okay, there is an equation that we use to figure out, okay, your nominal GDP. Okay, and again, nominal GDP has to do with the actual value of the GDP, whereas your real GDP has to do with GDP after accounting for inflation. Okay, so nominal GDP does not account for inflation. So nominal GDP, as per this equation, is equal to money supply, which is the supply of loanable funds to commercial banks by the central banks, times this by the velocity, which is the pace at which the money circulates within an economy. So technically speaking, your nominal GDP is directly proportional to the product of money supply and the pace at which the money moves within an economy. All right. Now, back in the days, okay, before 1980s, okay, before 1970s, or even before 1980s rather, okay, before 1980s, economists used to believe that constant money supply will create, okay, favorable conditions for the economy, so will create a predictable real GDP, okay, predictable economy, economic growth, predictable economic growth, okay, and real GDP, okay, which is the same as your economic growth. So the real GDP, if it grows in a predictable fashion, okay, it may be good for the economy, as per the economists back in the early ages before 1980s. Okay, and the reason why they said this is because they thought that if the central bank was to interfere with their monetary policies, it may cause a disruption in the economy in general. Okay, and we've seen this in the past where during the Great Recession back in 2007, 2008, okay, when the inflation went up, the interest rates went up. As the interest rates went up, it caused a recession. Okay, so you have a cycle of recession and inflation because of monetary policies, as a result of which the economists before 1980s believed that a constant rate of money supply, which is the constant rate of loanable funds, okay, which basically means that the central bank would need to buy a certain number of treasury bonds or bills at a certain price, okay, from the commercial banks, for the money supply to be constant. Okay, and if there is a constant rate of money supply, the GDP will grow at a constant rate as well. And there's less disruption from the central bank. Okay, and the central bank will not have or may not have to use the monetary policies altogether. Okay, so you have a constant rate of money supply, which will create a favorable condition for the economic growth. Okay, so real GDP, this will create a favorable condition for economic growth. So constant rate of money supply. So this is constant rate of money supply. All right, and because there's a constant rate of money supply, okay, your price levels and real GDP is also predictable because nominal GDP is directly proportional to the product of price level and real GDP. So nominal GDP is directly proportional. Okay, let's just say is directly proportional, at least in theory. Okay, considering ceteris paribus, all other factors being equal. Okay, to price level and GDP, to the product of price level and GDP. All right, so this basically breaks the equation down to this equation over here. So price level, which is the price level of basket of goods. And we've talked about the price level of basket of goods in the past. This has to do with price and quantity of all goods produced within an economy or within a nation. So price level times your nominal or real GDP rather. So real GDP has to do with economic growth, and this has to do with economic growth after factoring in inflation. So real GDP, and this is basically your price into quantity with reference to a base year. Okay, so real GDP equals your money supply directly proportional to the product of money supply and velocity, which is also your nominal GDP. All right, so based on this equation, okay, we understand that velocity does play a role when it comes to your economic growth. Okay, the pace at which the money circulates within an economy, along with the amount of loanable funds provided by the central bank, do play a role within an economy for the economic growth. As a result of which, after 1980s, okay, what ended up happening was as the technology grew, the type of transactions that people carried out, okay, when it comes to bill payments, when it comes to electronic transfers, e-transfers, electronic payments, so on and so forth, okay, they changed the um, the way the economists looked at money supply and velocity altogether. Okay, so what ended up happening was the fluctuation when it comes to the velocity changed the real GDP, the growth of GDP in a way that the economists started to factor in velocity as well. in the equation, saying, hey, listen, um, we have to factor in velocity, okay, because constant money supply may be good for the economy, but then again, if you have a unpredictable velocity, the rate at which or the pace at which money circulates within an economy, if that is unpredictable, then your real GDP, your growth, your economic growth will also be unpredictable. Okay, so that would be your basic quantity equation of money. Okay, so if velocity changes, okay, so does the real GDP. All right, so that would be it for this video. On behalf of Electronics, this is Obey. Have yourself a great day.